Action. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just reading Bhagavatam. Got all dressed up for the occasion. Hari Hari. Okay, where are we?
Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 7.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 7. My Lord, you are the Supreme One, but by your different energies you appear differently in the spiritual and material worlds. You create the total energy of the material world by your external potency. And after creation you enter within the material world as the Supersoul. You are the Supreme Person, and through the temporary modes of material nature you create varieties of manifestations, just as fire entering into wood of different shapes burns brilliantly in different varieties. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj realized that the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, acts through his different energies, not that he becomes void or impersonal and thus becomes all-pervading. The Mayavadi philosopher thinks that the Absolute Truth, being spread throughout the cosmic manifestation, has no personal form. But here Dhruva Maharaj, upon realization of the Vedic conclusion, says, you are spread all over the cosmic manifestation by your energy. This energy is basically spiritual, but because it acts in the material world temporarily, it is called Maya or illusionary energy. In other words, for everyone but the devotees, the Lord's energy acts as external energy. Dhruva Maharaj could understand this fact very nicely, and he could understand also that the energy and the energetic are one and the same. The energy cannot be separated from the energetic. Nothing to comment.
Prabhupada said it all. I think it's interesting because there's always this, not exactly a debate, but the external energy, Bhumirapo, Nalo Vayu, Kamano, Buddhahira, Vicha, 7.4 Bhagavad Gita, explains that it's Krishna's separated material energy, and then he says, above this, apariyamatas tvanyam prakritim vidime param, that there's the soul, there's the spiritual energy. But, as Prabhupada is saying here, yes, and it's interesting, I like the way he said, the energy is basically spiritual. Why? Because everything's coming from Krishna, so it's all Krishna's energy, so ultimately it's all spiritual energy. But because it acts in the material world temporarily, it is called Maya, or illusory energy. And then Prabhupada, so it means that because it's happening in the material world, and Krishna's energy is being used in the material world, then it's Maya, it's illusory energy. But in other words, for everyone but the devotees, the Lord's energy acts as external energy. Now that's quite powerful, because what does it mean? It means that the material energy is acting on everyone as material energy and creating Maya, except for the Lord's devotees. Why? Because the Lord's devotees understand and see that even that external material item or thing or activity or energy is coming from Krishna, and therefore they see it as connected to Krishna, so it's not Maya. Because Maya means that which is not. But if you're seeing it as connected to Krishna, that is as it is. That is what it is. So then it's not Maya. It's not illusion. It's the truth. So, but of course, as the Lord's devotee, you have to be in that consciousness, and you have to be seeing whatever is happening, and however it's happening, however Krishna is using that external energy, it's still his energy, and it's still ultimately under his control. Davyesha gunamayi mamamaya durajaya, like that. That's thought. Sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay, next paragraph. The identity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the feature of Paramatma or Supersoul is admitted herein. His original spiritual energy enlivens the material energy, and thus the dead body appears to have life force. Voidist philosophers think that under the certain material conditions, the symptoms of life occur in the material body, but the fact is that the material body cannot act on its own. Even a machine needs separate energy, electricity, steam, etc. It is stated in this verse that the material energy acts in varieties of material bodies, just as fire burns differently in different wood according to the size and quality of the wood. In the case of devotees, the same energy is transformed into spiritual energy. This is possible because the energy is originally spiritual, not material, like I was just saying. It is said, Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta. The original energy inspires a devotee, and thus he engages all his bodily limbs in the service of the Lord. The same energy as external potency engages the ordinary non-devotees in material activities for sense enjoyment. We should mark the difference between Maya and Swadharma. For devotees, the Swadharma acts, whereas in the case of non-devotees, the Maya energy acts. Well, that's very powerful. And I must confess, that is definitely, probably not the first time I've heard it, because it's not the first time we've read the Bhagavatam or Prabhupada's books. But this principle of Swadharma energy, you've heard that many times before? Okay. So, yes, Swadharma. I mean, I've heard of Swadharma, but Swadharma, interesting, because a dham is like an abode, Krishna's abode. So this is very powerful and is very clearly explaining that the supersoul is present in the body, therefore the body appears to have life. And just as a machine needs to have some energy in order to move, some batteries, some electricity, or Prabhupada says here steam, interesting. So therefore something that appears to have life has to have come from the origin of all life, which is Krishna. And here it's specifically pointing towards the Paramatma, or the Supersoul. Interesting, very nice.
Okay, text 8. O my Lord, O my Master, Lord Brahma, is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see me and understand the entire universe. Just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How therefore can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten even for a moment by his surrendered devotees. The devotee understands that the Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. He cannot know how much he is benefited by the grace of the Lord. The more a devotee engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, the more encouragement is supplied by the energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that to those who are constantly engaged in devotional service with love and affection, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives intelligence from within, and thus they may make further progress. Being so encouraged, the devotee can never forget at any moment the Personality of Godhead. He always feels obliged to him for having achieved increased power in devotional service by his grace. The saintly persons like Sanaka, Sanatan and Lord Brahma were able to see the entire universe by the mercy of the Lord through knowledge of the Lord. The example is given that a person may apparently abstain from sleep all day, but as long as he is not spiritually enlightened, he is actually sleeping. He may sleep at night and perform his duties in the daytime, but as long as he does not come to the platform of working his spiritual enlightenment, he is considered to be always sleeping. A devotee therefore never forgets the benefit derived from the Lord. This reminds me of a cemetery that we were driving past today, and it was very big, like incredibly big.
Highgate, I think it was, right? Highgate Cemetery.
Yeah, and so it was down one long road, and we took a right, and it was up the road as well. I mean, it very, very big. And I was so on the one hand, and I was looking as we were driving, there were so many gravestones, and you could see from the state of them the colour and the moss, that how old they were as well. Some looked kind of new, not so much, and it was vast. It was like a vast field of some gravestones. And then I was looking on the other side of the road, and there you had people just going about their business. Like I saw one man was gardening. I think he was working, and he was clearing someone's front lawn. And I saw one lady just walking down the road. And I was thinking, people that live in this area, because it's very easy due to the spiritual energy, whichever form you take it in, of the Lord, to be covered. And so I was thinking, do they make the connection because they're facing it so directly that I'm going to end up there one day? I'm just going to cross the road and go there. And I was looking at this man who was the gardener, who was struggling, cutting the weeds or was pulling something. And I was thinking, what a futile endeavour for what? Like, you're going to spend your life just being whoever you are, Mr. Blogs, and then you do the gardening and you go home and eat and this. And yeah, he doesn't kind of like have that understanding or intelligence to come out of that program that everyone's in and heading to. As you know, everyone's got a common destination they're heading to. So it's like, because here Prabhupada's saying that, where, you know, if you're not taking to spiritual enlightenment, you're always sleeping. You know, you're always in ignorance, basically. You're always covered.
Mm-hmm.
And even it stares you in the face, like a cemetery, and that too, not a hidden one. You could see it all from the outside. It was big gates, fence, but it was massive. You couldn't avoid that cemetery. I wonder how many people make that connection, that, okay, what's it all about between now and then? What's it all about in between?
And Jeev Jago. What does that think in India? The sadhus, they often sit next to the burning ghats, and even in, I think it's in Rome, the monks, the priests, they would go into the catacombs and look at the bones and just meditate on this, like you're saying, like this fact that in between now and there, what's it all about? You know, very powerful. Next paragraph, the Lord is addressed here as Arta Bandhu, which means friend of the distressed. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, after many, many births of executing severe austerities in search of knowledge, one comes to the point of real knowledge and becomes wise when one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosophers who do not surrender unto the Supreme Person is understood to be lacking in real knowledge. The devotee in perfect knowledge cannot forget his obligations to the Lord at any moment. Yeah, perfect knowledge and not forgetting obligation to the Lord at any moment. I mean, to the best of our ability, we try to be engaged and remembering the Lord, but for sure there are many, 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 many moments where we forget our obligation to the Lord. Yeah. Heavy stuff. Okay. One more for the road.
Okay.
It's your turn, isn't it?
Text 9. Persons who worship you simply for the sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy, in spite of having you, who are like a desire tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death. Foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj repented because he had come to the Lord to render devotional service for material profit. He here condemns his attitude. Only due to gross lack of knowledge does one worship the Lord for material profit or for sense gratification. The Lord is like a desire tree. Anyone can have whatever he desires from the Lord, but people in general do not know what kind of benediction they should ask from him. Happiness derived from the touch of skin or sensuous happiness is present in the life of hogs and dogs. Such happiness is very insignificant. If a devotee worships the Lord for such insignificant happiness, he must be considered devoid of all knowledge. one hand you're told like to go to Krishna for everything, and then you hear here, well, you must be devoid of knowledge if you're going to Krishna for anything apart from self-realization. So.
Yeah, that's a note I made on this verse in purport. Because a few verses, not so long ago, Dhruva was kind of being glorified actually for going to the Lord. He went to the Lord to get what he wanted. So in one sense it is glorious. But the note that I made is, it seems contradictory that now Prabhupada is saying, yeah, you must be a fool if you do that. But actually in my notes I put that it seems contradictory, but actually it's not contradictory because both true statements are true. And it's amazing how with our Vedic philosophy we can understand that depending on our time, place, and circumstance, and also our perspective on something, we can have that different things can ring as the truth. So it is glorious that anyone goes to the Lord for anything. That is absolutely glorious and to be encouraged. At the same time, someone who's on a more elevated platform realizes, as Dhruva Maharaj will also realize, that what have I done? Why have I come to you for such petty things? When you realize what the Lord has to offer and who the Lord is and your relationship with him, you realize, God, I've just been asking for little toys to play with, when really I should be asking for something much more valuable, much more. It reminds me of that story of Sanatana Goswami and the Brahmin who comes and hears that he has in his possession a touchstone, a Chintamani stone, and he's talking with Sanatana, and he says, oh, I hear you have this stone. He says, yeah, it's outside in the back in a garbage pile. And he said, what? And he said, yeah, you can have it if you want it. And then he took it and he was doing all this stuff with it, and then he started thinking, if he had this on the garbage pile, that means he must have something more valuable. So he went back and asked him, if this was on the garbage pile, what do you have that's more valuable? And he said, I can share with you what's more valuable if you go to the river and throw that stone in it and just forget about it. And he was hesitant, but then he did it, and he came back, and Sanatana Goswami said, the real Chintamani stone is the Maha Mantra, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And so that's the real jewel, that's the real gem. But Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, should we finish here?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Hare Krishna to you. Please read the Srimad Bhagavatam and stay enlivened and buoyant in your spiritual life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.